And before I get into the tactical steps of how to really start letting go of expectations, I believe it might be really illuminating to first set the stage to understand the concept called the expectations gap. According to Nat Rare, who gave a viral TED Talk called Why We Are Unhappy, the Expectations Gap, he explains there are 3 types of expectations gaps, which is based on how we form expectations. Number 1, the imagination gap. This is common and what I've regularly spoken about when our thoughts are based on the should-be belief of a response or an outcome, either on ourselves or on others. Number 2, interpersonal gap. This is when other people's reality is greater than our reality. And we set expectations because we set ourselves up for comparing somebody else's reality to ours. And number 3, intertemporal gap. This means we compare our past to our present and set ourselves up for disappointment when we think our past is greater than our present reality. So before I go further, I'd love to now ask you to pause and think about the last time you set an expectation on yourself. What was your motivating factor? Were you expecting to achieve a certain result or an outcome? Or even a feeling, transformation, shift, or all of the above? Then ask yourself, did you meet your expectations? And how did you feel when you met or did not meet your expectations? See, I'm asking this as I've explained before, expectations are extrinsic, which means that we put value on something outside of our control. And if we look at the 3 different types of expectation gaps as defined by Nat Rare, again, you can clearly see the common denominator in the 3 expectation gaps is linked to some external factor beyond our present reality. In the first example, our imagination being greater than our present reality. And in the second example, interpersonal gap. Somebody else's reality is greater than our reality. And in number 3, intertemporal gap. The past that is no longer in our control is greater than our present reality. And it is often our attachment to the external factor, whether it be a specific outcome you expected, or somebody else's response, or your past to your present. It not only leads us to our distorted perception of reality, but I believe it really robs us from truly being in the present moment. This is something that I've had to learn the hard way. When I caught myself fixating on how it should have been, how it should have gone, how they should have responded, how things should have been, you name it. And if you are curious, like I was, why I was fixated on this should-be belief, I had to really work through it in therapy and discover for myself, I was fixated on this should-be belief was really rooted in my fear of uncertainty, which in relationships, which was very different, interestingly, to me being very courageous actually in handling uncertainty and not being risk averse in other areas of my life. Therefore, I needed to know which manifested into this need to control the future and robbing me then of being in the present moment and really discovering the beauty and joy the present moment was offering, including all the surprises that I didn't expect. The point I'm trying to make here is when you pause to ask yourself these questions, like what is your motivating factor of your expectation and what you're truly expecting out of X, Y, and Z, you may be able to better understand and pinpoint if your intentions are rooted in something intrinsic to you, such as your core values and principles, which actually lead you to set standards, or are they more extrinsic so that you can take the necessary steps of letting go of expectations. So this leads me perfectly on how you can start to practice the art of letting go of expectations so you can free yourself from feelings of disappointment and frustration that always is linked to having expectations, either on yourself or on others. So here are the 5 steps to start the practice of the art of letting go of expectations. Step 1, become aware of your motivating factor behind your expectation. Is it linked to an expectation that someone or your culture, society, parents, or someone else has had on you? Or is it deeply rooted in your own values and principles on how you show up in the world and they reflect your standards? If you realize it is deeply linked to your values, you are setting standards, not expectations, because you do not expect anyone to acquiesce to your standards. Step 2, assess all possible outcomes. Don't just fixate, like I did, on one expectation of an outcome you desire. Think about all the different and all the possible outcomes that could unfold, including the good, the bad. Then think about how it would affect your mood, your behavior. This allows you to have a more expansive view of the possible outcomes and be okay with how things unfold and not meet a certain expectation. And this includes even being taken by complete surprise, which is so beautiful in its own way. Step 3, let go of the ideal of how things should be or must be all the time. This allows you to surrender for your need and the illusions of control of a situation, person, or your attachment to an outcome. If you ask my 28-year-old self of her expectations, I should have been married by now with 2 kids and probably still living in California. Fast forward to 15 years later, none of that is part of my current reality. You know what? I couldn't be more happier and quite frankly in awe of how my life has evolved and unfolded. If I held on to those expectations I had of myself back then, I would be thinking I was a failure, that I haven't met and I haven't achieved these major life goals. Somehow though, as I evolved, so did my desires, dreams, and standards for myself. So I went along with the ride. So set your standards high for yourself, but let go of how it is supposed to unfold and when for you. Step 4, truly be in the present moment. This may be the hardest, as it was for me. I have an overactive analytical mind that automatically likes to add meaning, because yes, humans are meaning, our brains are meaning-making machines, which though I realized was truly robbing me of being in that present moment, as I mentioned before, because I was fixated on the meaning of what was happening now, on the unknown future. And I wanted to understand and control every minute detail. So for me, truly being present meant surrendering for my need to know and control the future. Don't get me wrong, truly believe that our daily habits and actions and behaviors all stack up and compound to dictate the quality of life we create that reflect our standards. Practicing being truly in the present moment will make room for those unexpected surprises that will delight you in ways you've never even imagined. And how beautiful is that? Or perhaps even grow from the most challenging Kensho moments that you may have been destined for your growth journey. Step 5, most importantly, detach your identity and self-worth from your unmet expectations on yourself or on others. I trust now that if I go into any situation with the right intentions, energy, and standards that reflect my authentic self, whatever will unfold will serve its purpose and have meaning down the line without me having to expect it to go the way I imagined or try to understand it in the moment. See, our expectations and our past experiences shape our perceived reality. But holding everything that unfolds naturally against it robs us from truly being in the present and embracing the natural course of our life experiences. So what do you think? Did any of this resonate with you? What are some practices that have helped you let go of expectations? And thank you again for being here with me, and I hope to see you again next time.